Let's bring in Chris DeGaulle.
He is Chris DeGaulle.
Chris DeGaulle.
I'm joined now by Chris DeGaulle.
Host of the Chris DeGaulle Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris DeGaulle.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris DeGaulle Show podcast.
And host of the Chris DeGaulle Show.
Let's bring in Chris DeGaulle.
Please welcome Chris DeGaulle.
The Chris DeGaulle Podcast is presented by USMedicalPlan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at USMedicalPlan.com.
Well, hey there, how do you do? And welcome into the Chris DeGaulle Show podcast. I appreciate you subscribing and downloading this show and making it a destination with regularity. It means a ton to us. I know there are a lot of places you could be. And it really helps us when you leave that 5-star review and that written review at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you have the time to scroll down to the bottom of the menu of shows and leave 5 stars, that helps us grow a lot. And of course, if you ever want to pass this show around to somebody else, we're always grateful for you spreading the word, because your endorsement of this show means more than anything I can do myself in terms of marketing or otherwise. So thank you very much. And thanks for supporting the sponsors who make this show possible, like John Ruhlman, the guy that runs USMedicalPlan.com. And he wants to talk to you if buying health insurance is something you dread or you're doing and you think, I can't afford it, it's breaking me. I'm a small business guy. I want to treat my employees well. Or maybe you're somebody who has 2 or 3 employees, not a whole staff, but just 2 or 3, and you still want to give them health insurance, but it's costly. Look, have you shopped group insurance with John? USMedicalPlan.com works with 80 different private health insurers around the country, so John will shop and compare what you're currently paying. He's not going to give you cut rate coverage either. This is the thing that a lot of people worry about. They say, well, okay, if John gets me a cheaper rate, does that mean I'm not going to be covered as well? No. In fact, what John has told me a lot is he gets on the phone with people who complain about how much they're paying, and then he tells them, you know what, and you're not really getting the kind of coverage you think you're getting. So John does 2 things right away. He assesses the insurance you have, tells you whether the coverage is any good or not, then immediately goes to work to find you something less expensive with as good as or better than coverage that you currently have. So if you're a small business, if you are an individual, if you're a senior citizen, if you're a young person and you need supplemental coverage, or you just need a policy that you don't have at all, please reach out for just a couple of minutes and talk to John's team about it. They also have a great customer care program so that you're not doing bureaucratic nonsense, waiting on the phone, back billing and paperwork and blah, blah, blah. I love that John is a one-stop shop and a full resource for all your insurance needs, affordability, and full coverage. That is the name of his game. He's a young father himself, so that matters to him. It matters to me, and him taking great care of this audience is the most important thing to me. So cheaper insurance, better coverage, USMedicalPlan.com, USMedicalPlan.com, or 877-410-4321. Some of you might expect that I would lead today with Hunter Biden. But I'm not. In fact, I don't think Hunter Biden is even in the top 3 most important stories of the day. You know what I think is significant? I think it's significant that Russia is conducting military exercises in the Caribbean. You know what I think is significant? I think it's significant that 8 suspected individuals tied to ISIS in Philadelphia, New York, and Los Angeles have just been arrested. I think I'm more concerned that oil prices are about to rise to nearly $90 a barrel. Those are just 3 off the top of my head, and I haven't even really dug into the stack yet today. These are all stories that should concern you far more than the Hunter Biden felony conviction. And may I just say quickly, what disappoints me so much about so many Republicans that I'm seeing comment publicly about the Hunter Biden case is that it has nothing to do with why we object to Hunter Biden. Everyone is taking the bait and being completely distracted with a discussion about felonious gun purchasing, as if that's what you or I have any interest in discussing when it comes to Hunter Biden. It's not. Did he break the law? Of course he did. Do I care that he's been found guilty on federal gun charges? Do I care that he could face up to 25 years? Do you and I all know how that ends? I know all of you said the same thing. Everybody understands. I know. You say, well, Chris, this just distracts us all because, at the end of the day, Biden's just going to pardon him anyway. Maybe, probably, stipulated, I don't know. Well, Chris, you know that they just did this to distract us from they're trying to throw a little chum in the water to distract the press and give them something to say when people point to the two-tier system of justice and weaponizing the justice system against Trump. They'll say, well, no, you can't say that because we just took out the president's son. So you see, the law has never been more fair and even than it is right now. We'll take out the powerful and connected no matter who they are, where they're found. Within 1 month, we have convicted, the state courts have found the former president guilty, and the federal courts have found the son of a president guilty. And for this, proof that the justice system is in fact equal. Okay. You're right. You're probably right. There's an argument to be made there. That's not what any of this is about. You do know that, don't you? I've already told you, if you're a regular listener to this show, what this is about. This is about making us all stop talking about the fact that they have been cashing in on the family name with foreign interests all over the world. This is to make us forget about the Hunter Biden laptop. This gun thing has nothing to do with any of us. It is not of interest in the election upcoming. It is not something that I expect or hope that Trump will even bring up, frankly, because it's not even in the same universe. First of all, it is not proof of the even-handedness of the justice system. That's first. But more to the point, getting into the weeds about whether the judicial system worked here, whether justice was served, whether, hey, that's good that they're holding old Hunter accountable just the same way you and I would. Potential 25 years. Who cares if Hunter Biden goes away for 25? Let's assume he even gets sentenced to 25 years in prison, and let's assume the husk doesn't even pardon it. Let's assume. Is that really our biggest concern and worry about the Biden family? Okay, so we've jailed a crackhead who illegally purchased a gun. Is that our biggest problem with Hunter Biden? No. Do you want to be dragged into a discussion about the family struggling? And, of course, they're trying it again. Remember, I played for you a couple of... what was it, yesterday? Was it from Monday that Mika and Molly Jong-Fast were talking about? Do you remember that? I played it for you. I don't know if you still have that or not, Fast Eddie. Molly Jong-Fast and Mika Brzezinski. We played it yesterday, and I think it was from Monday, when they were lamenting addiction. And in fact, Mika was sure that the jury was going to come down on the side of Hunter, and ultimately, I guess, find him innocent, because whose family has not been touched by addiction?
It seems to me that it would be very hard to find a jury that has been untouched by addiction completely.
Yeah, and the reason that I wanted to come forward, I'm right about this, is because even though I've been sober since I was a teenager, I felt that the disease that Hunter Biden has is the same disease that I have, is the same disease that, almost 20% of the country has. And, Republicans do love to talk about fentanyl coming over the border. There's a reason that drugs are a problem in this country, and it's largely because of addiction. So this is another part of that. I think Republicans have really actually not had a lot of success using Hunter Biden to sully Joe Biden, but they have tried. One of the sort of moments in the debate where Biden ended up really being that Biden that voters really like was when he talked about his son's addiction, and he said, he
so you
with
get
addiction.
it. This is where they set the week. This is how it all began, with Mika and Molly talking about whose family has not been touched by addiction. They were actually begging the jury not to find Hunter guilty of felonious gun purchases because, addiction. And who hasn't been touched by addiction? And the Republicans, typical Republicans, are falling into that. I just saw a statement from Speaker Johnson. The evidence was overwhelming. This was a victory for justice. Guys, this is not about a gun purchase, for heaven's sakes. And they all did it. Every one of them parroted the same thing yesterday. So the verdict comes out, and they all go to the microphone. Terry Moran, ABC News. Oh, what a tragedy. What a sad... Oh, the family, the addiction. Oh!
An extraordinary scene to watch the First Lady leave that courthouse holding her son's hand.
Oh, my God. Not since Kennedy shot.
It really was, David, and it reminds us that for all of the major implications of the first conviction of the child of a president, this trial inside the courtroom, like virtually every criminal trial, was a personal story, a personal tragedy, a family tragedy. The guilty verdicts that the jury has handed down on Hunter Biden were verdicts not just on his conduct under law, but on his collapse into drug addiction and the consequences of it. So many American families understand that.
Yeah, basically,
and now the first family has gone through it as well. The political consequences of it may be tempered by the fact that this is a scourge that has touched so many American families, even the president's.
You see, that's what. Now, look, they're not wrong. I mean, I don't want you to misunderstand. While I'm mocking it, they're not wrong. Molly's not wrong. Terry's not wrong. This went on and on and on. Oh, the scourge of drug addiction. Oh, it's now touched even the first family. Oh, what family among us have not been touched by the scourge of addiction? Oh, they're right that Biden is going to play this like a fiddle. It is, of course, a weapon. Of course it's being used to make them sympathetic. Because, of course, there's probably not a family. There's not a person listening to this show today who hasn't directly been impacted by addiction. Of course that's true. And so they want you to believe that he purchased a gun illegally because addiction, and who hasn't been touched by addiction? It isn't a political tool. And so that's why I say Mike Johnson and all the Republicans who are coming out say, this is a victory for justice. Just stop it. That's exactly where they want us. They want us all piling on the drug addict. And then they're going to be able to say, oh, really, Mr. Sanctimonious? Why, you don't know addiction? Fast Eddie, you don't know addiction in your family? You don't know somebody who struggled with drugs and alcohol? Are you prepared to sit there on your high horse and judge poor Hunter and this first family in their time of woe?
Now, I do know someone with addiction.
You see?
But...
What
about all the other stuff?
That's right. It's the laptop. It's the drug. It's the influence peddling. It's the bagging of money. And nobody's talking about it. And the Republicans aren't even talking about it. And so Joe is going to have this talking point, and the media has been prepping him heading into this debate here on the 27th when Hunter comes up, and he will. And they're going to try to put side by side Trump and Hunter and the convictions, and they're going to try to put them on an even plane as some sort of evidence or something. Or Trump's much worse because he was this mustache-twisting scallywag who tried to screw the system through the tax code. And Hunter, poor Hunter, he's just struggling with addiction like every family does, and who hasn't been touched by it? And I'm proud of my son for battling back his demons, but he must adhere to the law. And so while I'm proud of my son and his battle with addiction, yes, he must face the consequences for the mistakes he's made. And I, for one, as a proud father, do I have to write it? Are we really going to do this? I don't want to do this. This isn't a story. It's a really good day for the justice. Chuck Todd, very happy about justice being served. And this proves beyond a shadow of a doubt, rubber stamp, cut, paste. Many of you knew this was coming. We all saw this coming. Justice has been served. The American judicial system has a healthy pulse. Everything's fine.
There's not many countries in the world where the son or daughter of said country would get prosecuted in their judicial system. This is how different America is, and I do think that this is a really good day for the American system. Okay, that you know what, it really does try to operate. You know, no one says it's perfect. We have plenty of flawed individuals in the judiciary branch. We learn about more and more of them every day, some days. But the system itself, the whole idea of it, today in that sense was a good day. I mean, think about this.
Think about it.
He got convicted by a jury in Delaware. Okay? Biden is the first, they're the arguably the most well-known family in the state of Delaware, perhaps responsible for so many things that Delaware has from the government today. So,
yes,
the location of this guilty verdict, I think, mattered. As somebody pointed out earlier, with the First Lady of the United States, that's putting certainly
my God.
Perhaps some people would have thought that's trying to put a finger on the scale in a place like Delaware, and that didn't matter. So I do think we should step back and realize that our system is different. There is a fairness to it where we really do aspire that nobody is above the law.
Chuck's out there. That's enough. Chuck's out there really giving it his all, isn't he? Bless his heart. What a sales pitch. Hey, just so everybody knows, in advance of this election where everybody realizes a former president of the United States has been railroaded in Manhattan by an overzealous, abusive judge and prosecutor and will probably be overturned on appeal because of his Banana Republic circus court. Just so everyone knows at home, yesterday's guilty verdict proves our judicial system is sound and healthy and unlike any other in the world. It's just fine. So any of you who were doubting what happened in Manhattan, just so you know, look at this. He was convicted, and not just anywhere, but in Delaware. And Jill was there. Oh. How much more obvious does it have to be to convict? I love that he talks about it like it's close. It's not like this is such a stupid story. It's not close. A toddler can understand that the crack-addled, money-grubbing, hooker-banging son of a president lied on a gun form, and that's a felony. Everybody knows this. What do you mean? Not even the First Lady, not even the Biden family name could convince a jury in Delaware. Well, good grief. This is like the opposite of Trump. They tried to move heaven and earth to contort and twist themselves into pretzels to get to a conviction for Trump. They told the jury, bust out in groups of 3, and if you can get close to something, we'll basically call it good. What? This jury, they were like, so he's a crackhead, a well-documented crackhead, right. And then he filled out the form to buy a gun that said he's not a crackhead, right. Okay, well, that's lying on a federal form to purchase a gun. You got it, that's right. Well, that seems pretty cut and dry. Right, guilty, boom, out. There's no stroking of the chin. Well, we're in Delaware, and we got to... This is justice. The case... Mike Johnson out today. The case was clear from the beginning, and justice was... Stop it. There's real stuff out there. 8 foreign nationals with suspected ISIS... By the way... This actually dovetails with a point that I wanted to make as well, while we're still on Hunter for a minute. If drugs are such a scourge, if addiction is such a scourge, and it is, why is there not priority put on closing the southern border? Why wouldn't a sympathetic father who's struggling with addiction in his family and his son struggling with an addiction, as we know, and as has been well documented, and as everyone even inside the Biden administration admits, fentanyl, for instance, is pouring across our southern border and killing people and making them more and more addicted. We talked with Jason Jones from Newsmax about that last week. Streets in major metropolitan areas all over the country, like the Kensington area of Philadelphia, zombie apocalypse stuff, people walking around with needles in their arms. All of this stuff is pouring in across the southern border. All of this addiction is being funneled and fueled largely by China and fentanyl coming across the border. If addiction is really touching us all, and this is to make us all feel very, very sad and sympathetic for the Biden family because we all know addiction, then why the hell isn't the Biden family doing more to curtail a wide open southern border? That might be a great pivot question. And I hope, this is another reason I don't want this debate to happen on the 27th. I got to thinking about this on the way in. What I don't want, Fast Eddie, follow me on this one, and you tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. Because I know there are going to be people, I can hear you already when I say this, banging away on your keyboard, sending me angry messages and posts on X. Trump runs the risk of coming out hot on this debate because he did it on the first one last time and it didn't go well for him. He did much better on the second. But if he comes out too hot and starts swinging on Joe Biden's frailty, his infirmities, his feebleness, and Hunter, and the drugs and the guns. Now, I'm not saying that's what Trump is doing. I would like to believe Trump has much better advisors than this. But if Trump comes out hot and starts making these hits on Biden, you know where this is going to go. The entire night, rather than be about facts, real meaningful destruction that Biden is presiding over in this country, it's going to get boiled down to Trump was mean, picking on a man's age and picking on a poor family with drug addiction. That's where it's going to go. So I would just strongly advise Team Trump. I know many of them listen. And for what it's worth, I'm not a paid advisor, take it or leave it, but for what it's worth, if we're going into this debate, and this is really going to happen on the 27th, I'm still dubious, please do not take the bait on Hunter Biden or Joe Biden's age. Don't do it. That's for us to have fun with in memes and whatnot on social media. We'll handle that. You handle the substance of a wide open border and an unstable globe and violence and depravity in our streets, our schools contaminated with individuals trying to get at our kids and convince them they're not the gender they are. Stay focused on that stuff. Stay focused on the economy and inflation. Don't get distracted with this stuff that Biden's old and doesn't know where he is, or poor Hunter and his drug addiction. Don't do it. You know what I'm saying, Fast Eddie? If Trump comes in hot on that, that's going to be the takeaway from the night. And Joe Biden probably won't be able to see fit to have another debate and lower himself with a convicted felon who's just going to do nothing but make personal attacks on my age and my family. You can hear it. I mean, I can see all this coming from downtown, so I'm waving my arms before we go careening off the cliff. Do not go into this debate talking about Hunter's gun charge guilty verdict and the drug habit and Biden's infirmities. Please don't. Please, let's put this Hunter thing to bed now. What happened yesterday is over, and it is not the story. I hope I've been clear on this, Fast Eddie.
You have strategically, if you'll remember, I mean, and you do well, it became, Trump becoming a bully and making fun of his age. And then it's just like making fun of the basement strategy. We're in a pandemic. Yes. So now this Hunter gun charge becomes the new pandemic. That's the next crutch.
Yeah. Please don't take the bait. Any of us, all of us. This is a show for everyone today. Don't take the bait. And you stupid Republicans, quit talking about justice being served. Justice has not been served. Don't give Chuck Todd standing here. Oh, this proves the American judicial system. The hell it proves anything. This is as obvious as the nose on our faces. This is literally a guy assassinating someone in broad daylight for all to see. If we all witness a murder, it's not going to be hard to get to the conclusion the guy that murdered is guilty. This is not a hard... Justice was served. Stop it. There is nothing about our justice system, given the abomination we just saw a couple of weeks ago in New York State, that suggests our judicial system is healthy and well. We have a DOJ that is completely corrupt. Banana Republic kicking down doors, arresting old women, and guys praying outside abortion clinics. We got people being rounded up at this hour, being investigated at this hour just for being in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. That's not even to speak of the harassment people are feeling from agencies like the IRS, for instance. The justice system works. Don't give them this, folks. Please don't. Don't. On the subject of open borders, and again, if Biden really cares about the scourge of addiction in American families, maybe he would also care about the fact that ISIS affiliates are being caught in major metropolitan cities, undoubtedly because our border is also wide open. We're a less safe country because our border is wide open because of Joe Biden. So if you'd like to talk about addiction, talk about it through that prism. And this story, 8 foreign nationals with suspected ties to ISIS arrested in recent days in a series of coordinated raids in Philadelphia, New York, and Los Angeles. Officials remained tight-lipped yesterday on the identities of the people and the circumstances that brought them to the attention of investigators. Law enforcement source familiar with the matter said all of the individuals initially hailed from Tajikistan in Central Asia and crossed into the United States illegally via the southern border. Well, there you go. They were allowed to remain in the country temporarily. Well, there you go. Is our system working? Guys with ISIS ties are given waivers to stay. Waiting asylum claims. Subsequent information, however, indicated that each of these people arrested may have had some affiliation with ISIS. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the FBI would not say how many people were arrested in Philadelphia and where the arrests took place. So far, those detained as part of the investigation have not been charged with terrorism-related crimes and are instead being held on immigration violations. Undoubtedly, they'll be released soon. The Russian military conducting exercises in the Caribbean. 3 Russian ships and a nuclear-powered submarine are expected to arrive in Cuba this week, ahead of military exercises in the Caribbean. And while the exercises aren't considered a threat to the United States, says CBS News. Oh, they aren't? Thank you, CBS. Just like this proves our American judicial system. What you see is not real. Just trust us. Trust us. CBS. We'll tell you when it's time to panic. CBS News. Don't worry. This is common. Sure, the Russians are putting on a boat show down there just to the southern tip of Florida. It's nothing. They're just down there having fun. You know, it's the season. Trying to get a tan down there. Don't worry. You shouldn't sweat it. Yeah, it's military vessels, but it's fine. What Russian ships are arriving in Cuba? According to Cuban Foreign Ministry, 3 Russian ships are a frigate, a fleet oil tanker, and a salvage tug. The 3 ships and the submarine headed across the Atlantic separately. Russia has used the frigate to test its hypersonic cruise missiles. Oh, well, that's fascinating. That's basically a ski vessel. That's just like, you know, you probably see that on Lake Harmony up there in the Poconos. You guys skiing around on a frigate.
Yeah, I was thinking of taking Eddie to the Russian boat show on the south coast of Florida.
Boat show! Yeah. Time to buy that boat. Come on out. Mariners, Mercuries, cruisers, and frigates from the Russian military. Time to buy that boat. Boat show. Hey there, it's Chris, back on the phone with my dentist and friend Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, Pennsylvania, just off the Blue Route with new technology. You have not just new associates, but they brought new technology into the business to make it a little easier for patients.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time in dentistry. We have now introduced a 3-dimensional x-ray called a CBCT scan in our office, which allows us to diagnose and things earlier for patients. My daughter is placing a lot of implants in the past had referred out. It's now being done in-house. And we also, we've been using dental or computer scanners for taking impressions for crowns for about the last 2 to 3 years. We now have introduced the next step, which is a milling machine, and we can now make crowns in the office. Things can be completed in the same day as opposed to having a temporary crown put on and 3 weeks later coming back and having a permanent crown put on. It's really a game changer, and it's a time saver for our patients to not have to make multiple visits to the office.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. This country knows Donald Trump was railroaded. This country knows Hunter Biden is a drug-addled gun felon. We all understand that. What the American people didn't understand the last time these two debated, when Trump tried to legitimately bring up the fact that the Hunter Biden laptop was real and the family has been globetrotting, cashing in on dad's name, that was a real story. And that was buried. And Joe Biden lied about it. And 51 Democrat Intel officials lied about it. And they've all been proven liars since. So that's what I believe Trump brings up if Hunter Biden comes up. That's what I think Donald Trump relitigates if you want to talk about an unfair system. At least I hope. One man's opinion, you may disagree. Also yesterday, and I can't believe this is timing. Is this timing? Is this just coincidence? Moms demand action. This is an anti-gun group. Joe Biden spoke to them yesterday with the backdrop of his son's felony gun charges and ultimate guilt found by a jury. 5 counts yesterday. Was this a coincidence, Fast Eddie, or on purpose?
I think it's a coincidence, Chris.
You do?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Joe just happened to have an anti-gun group he was going to speak to on the cracking down on firearms on the same day his son was found guilty on 5 counts of felony gun charges.
I do, only because I know how long it takes to plan those kind of events.
It does?
In advance.
Yes.
And I think people were genuinely shocked that the verdict came out yesterday. So I do think I'm sticking with that. It's a coincidence.
All right. In less than a minute during this speech yesterday, I watched a little of this, and I said to Fast Eddie, can we vet we're not watching something old? Because I need to know this is not me watching an old clip of something. I none of it made sense to me. I saw this, and I said to myself, this has got to be them highlighting Joe Biden talking about guns in an ironic way because his son was just convicted on felony gun charges. This is like somebody saying, remember what Joe Biden used to say about guns? Well, take a look at what his son just found guilty of. I thought that it was that. No, this is real time yesterday. The Husk speaking to an anti-gun group called Moms Demand Action. And in the first minute of this clip that you're going to hear, this is a minute, not even quite a minute-long clip. Listen to the man tell lie after lie after lie. And before you listen to it, let me just go down the list. He's going to claim he was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. He was never a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. Never. He's going to claim he taught a constitutional law class on the Second Amendment. He most certainly did not. He's taught nothing. He says you couldn't own a cannon when the Second Amendment was implemented. Actually not true. You could own a cannon. And then he tries to mock the very famous phrase, the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of tyrants. And they all had a hearty chuckle at that. They think that's funny, that revolutionary phrase. So he fumbles all of those and lies his way through that. In less than a minute, on the same day his son is found guilty on 5 gun charges. Take a listen.
They are so damn important. We need you. We need you to overcome the unrelenting opposition of the gun lobby, gun manufacturers, so many politicians when they oppose common sense gun legislation. I used to be when I was no longer the vice president, I became a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. Before that, I taught a constitutional law class, and so I taught the Second Amendment. There's never been a time that says you can own anything you want. You couldn't own a cannon during the Civil War.
It's actually true you could.
The blood of liberty.
The revolution is funny. I wish the British still controlled us.
And by the
We're
way,
idiots.
To take on government if we get out of line, which there's talking again about. Well, guess what? They need F-15s.
There we go. And that famous classic line, first delivered in front of Independence Hall, no less. He trotted that out again because, Democrats aren't divisive. Poke. Remember? Poke. The blood of liberty. The tree of the blood of tyrant. Aren't those revolutionaries idiots? All those people flying their Gadsden flags, thinking the country's in peril, hanging their flags upside. Cackle all the shrill harpies, totally ignorant of history. Poke. Does that make you mad, or do you roll your eyes at that stuff, Fast Eddie? Because it's intended to make you mad. They hope they are angling for a full-blown civil war if they can get it. They would love for people to just get full-blown pissed off and try something really ugly. I'm confident every time he delivers that line, that's what their hope is.
Oh, Chris, it used to make me extremely angry, especially the first time he did it, but I have learned from you over the years, and I am no longer mad. I see it coming down the pike.
Yeah, it's just this is the second time he's delivered this line at least. Yeah, you think you can take on the government? Get out of line, you're going to need an F-15.
Right now, you can't go out and buy an automatic weapon. You can't go out and buy a cannon. And for those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe, if you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun. No, I'm not joking. Think about this. Think about the rationale we use.
That's the, at least the second time that the husk has basically tried to remind you and me that the almighty power of the federal government will not be challenged. So you'd better just mind your place. From the Daily Wire headline memos show FBI vetting employee over support for Trump and the Second Amendment. An employee of the FBI had his security clearance revoked after the Bureau investigated his support for Trump, his opposition to COVID shots, and other issues, according to a complaint made public this week, filed against the Justice Department. The complaint, sent to the Inspector General of the DOJ, Michael Horowitz, by a watchdog group called Empower Oversight, claims that an FBI employee was punished by the Bureau over his politically conservative views. Is that hard to believe? Not for me. You know, it's funny. I can remember a time not terribly long ago, I mean, certainly within the last 20 years, when it was assumed that every FBI agent was a conservative. Every FBI agent was a law man and woman. The one thing that we always assumed safely were the rank and file. That was always what we said. The rank and file are good. The rank and file are basically good. Now, again, I've said to you before, I personally know FBI agents, and they are they're Boy Scouts, they are patriots, and they're rock-ribbed conservatives. So it is true that there are many, many great patriotic FBI agents. Not to suggest they're all scumbags or something, much like public school teachers aren't all scumbags, but it's just true that our institutions do get infested. And after a while, all the great tried and true patriots in public education or the Federal Bureau of Investigations or any other agency, they're choked out by the weeds, these left-wing Marxist ideologues. And they're the ones that are rewarded, and they're the ones that ascend to power, and they're the ones that have the bully pulpit, and they're the ones that decide to hire and fire and surveil somebody running for president or storm a Catholic father's home in the early morning hours. These are the scumbags that rise to power inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So, you know, to the men and women who are patriots and people of the law, I love you, but your institution's been hijacked. Yeah, a friend asked me, imagine if Biden ordered a bombing of a red state. Imagine if Biden used an F-15 against protesters. Is that what he wants us to think is okay? Texted a friend of mine today. It's a great question. It's a great point. I mean, I guess. The might of the federal government will not be challenged, and if you get out of line, we'll have to flex. Remember, though, Chuck Todd just assured us that this has never been a more just and fair system, right? I bet there are a few Catholics and January 6ers that would like to have a word with Mr. Todd.
At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred, and that's free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish, allowing ideas to flourish, debates to ignite, and progress to be made. Without it, our pursuit of liberty, our ability to challenge, or our capacity to innovate, it would be really constrained. Now, in today's digital age, the very platform that should democratize information is being allowed to narrow the spectrum of ideas we're exposed to. Really important discussions about our wealth, our rights, our future, systemically silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations that are really crucial to your financial independence and your security. And that's where the company Wealth Protection Research steps in. They're armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. I want to be clear about that. They're defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. In an era where dialogues about retirement, investments, economic freedoms are increasingly censored, Wealth Protection Research is focused on ensuring that diverse, controversial, and revolutionary ideas also get a platform. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts through leaders and thought leaders, trailblazers, all who've been pushed to the margins by mainstream media and tech platforms like Facebook and Google. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, offering fresh, often contrarian perspectives on protecting and growing your wealth, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of this coming election. By spotlighting these thinkers, people like Jim Rickards or Porter Stansberry, Wealth Protection Research is not just sharing financial advice, they're fostering a movement toward a more open, informed, and free society. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report, and it's a completely free report. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election, and it also contains ideas the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. Listeners to this show can get this whole thing completely free if you text the word ideas to 76626. Just text ideas to 76626, and if you do that today, you're also going to get a free gold investment kit from Wealth Protection Research. And the sponsor of that is Augusta Precious Metals, by the way, and we appreciate that. So just text ideas to 76626. If you're like me and you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act now. Text ideas to 76626. Claim your free copy of this 2024 election report. You know, it's time to widen the scope of what we're told. You know, we believe that here. Hear the ideas that establishment folks can't handle and don't think you can handle. Take control of your own financial destiny. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy. The battle for free speech is the battle for our future, and Wealth Protection Research ensures that the ideas capable of shaping our financial well-being are available to all of us who want to hear them. So don't wait. Grab your free report right now. Text ideas to 76626 and claim your free copy. Just this morning, issued my latest edition of the Harumph Society, and may I say, it's particularly profound. I think you're going to enjoy it. It's Father's Day week, and if your dad enjoys great conservative conversation and commentary and some laughs, and would like to meet some other great conservatives in this audience, or you yourself would, it's on sale this week, $30 for the whole year, and it arrives in your email box Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's the schedule I generally try to keep. Maybe take a little break for holidays or vacations, but otherwise, excuse me, it's at least 140 editions a year for $30. I mean, I think it's a deal. You know, somebody said, "Oh, Stigall, why are you charging anything for it?" I said, "Well, because it takes time, man. What do you want me to do? I can't just churn it all out for free all the time." And Substack charges me to host it, by the way. So tried to make it as cheap and inexpensive and affordable as possible. I know you're going to enjoy it. I really hope you do. And today I kind of go down the laundry list of abuses and lies that we know the Democrats have told and for which they must be held accountable. And if Trump is really focused going into June 27th in this debate, he can lay them out without ever making it personal. And it's a bit of a trick. And it's really not Trump's style, but I do hope, and I guess I bring in my great friend John Hayward, who is one of the smart thinkers and communicators out there in this business. He's a national security deputy editor at Breitbart. And you're the kind of guy I would love to have in a room for debate prep for a guy like Trump. You don't manage Trump. You don't handle Trump. You don't tell Trump to do anything. We all understand that by now. But my gosh, has he got a buffet to prosecute Joe Biden, John Hayward, if he remains really focused and disciplined and doesn't make it personal or take the Hunter bait and stuff like that. Good morning.
Good morning. Absolutely. And the discipline is going to be turning this into a narrative. You can build this into a broad critique of a corrupt system, of the things that have to be done to bring that system to heal, to start making things better for all the rest of us. You don't just throw out a couple of jokes and zingers about Joe Biden and his son. You build an argument about how the special privileges to this corrupt royal family are so emblematic of everything that's wrong with American government. We have an elite living in the clouds, living on Mount Olympus. They don't have have to obey the laws the rest of us do. They don't have to live in the world that they've made for the rest of us. That has to end. They have to be brought crashing back down to earth. And everything that's wrong in this country is a direct consequence of its elites being completely insulated from everything that they're doing to the rest of us. That should be Trump's big campaign narrative. If we're going to tame inflation, there's no magic wand that does that. You cut government spending. You chop the government down to size with a chainsaw. And if you're going to do that, you need to lay the groundwork by helping people to understand how bloated and corrupt the government is, how much of it has been politically weaponized by the dominant party, the Democrat Party, and you make them understand that you, Donald Trump, are going to be the guy that finally goes in there and starts chopping this thing down to size.
I was watching this tape that's been released, John, of Nancy Pelosi, yelling at her chief of staff. She takes responsibility for there being not proper security on January 6th. It kind of struck me. I don't know if this is uncomfortable for you to go here, and I don't mean for it to sound the way it might, but it made me think about how frightened she sounded and how frightened so many members of Congress have since said they were or were behaving that day. And when I really internalized it and really started thinking about it, I thought, I'm sure she was terrified, because these are not people that spend any amount of time with real people anymore. And the idea that real people had invaded their ivory tower, it was kind of striking. It was almost like, oh, damn straight they're scared. I mean, when was the last time they really had to face people at all about anything? Now, again, I'm not suggesting January 6th and breaching the Capitol was appropriate. Don't misunderstand. But you know what I'm saying?
Well, exactly right. Marie Antoinette would sympathize completely with how Nancy Pelosi felt. The peasants are not supposed to come banging on your door. You're supposed to be above all that, and you don't have any contact with real people. And more than that, look at the political caricature Nancy Pelosi has peddled about real people for all these years. Look back at her previous statements. She loathes you if you're in middle-class America. She hates you with a visceral passion, especially if you live in the parts of the country that she especially despises. And to see those grubby, filthy peasants, those kulaks, come banging up to her door, she had no idea what was going to happen to her next. So I don't doubt that she was afraid for a minute there. But, welcome to the world, Nancy. Now you're like us. We live in fear every day because of what you've done to us. Joe Biden's open borders policies, George Soros judges flooding the streets with criminals, Black Lives Matter riots, left-wing groups rioting, the pro-Hamas protesters destroying anything they feel like with complete impunity, with barely any consequences at all. And welcome to the world, Nancy. That's what it's like to be an American in the world you've created.
2 weeks away, this debate. The news today is the Husk is going to go to Camp David to prepare. I am still not convinced the thing happens. I'm sort of hopeful it doesn't happen, to be perfectly honest, selfishly. But I don't know. Is it going to happen, and how's it going to go? How's it going to work? Are you optimistic about it for Trump, or it's a CNN-hosted thing, Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, and Biden on CNN? What do you think?
That's a big part of why it is going to happen, because they're going to trust the moderators to do the heavy lifting, and Biden just has to barf out a couple of carefully prepared, rehearsed sound bites and not take the bait if Trump goads him into anything. They look back at the first Trump-Biden debate, and they saw what a mistake Trump made by going after Biden much too hard, by insulting and belittling him, by being belligerent and obnoxious, and it really hurt Trump in that first debate. He did much better the second time around, but it was too late. Damage was done, and hopefully Trump has learned his lesson. But I think they're pretty confident that between the moderators and Biden himself, they can goad Trump into losing control, and they can make the work to their advantage. And at this point, I think if they cancel the debate, they know it's going to hurt them. When you have polls like Joe Biden's poll numbers right now, the cellar that he's in, you can't just abandon the debate and make up a flimsy excuse.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. And you think it'll be the only one?
It might be. If it doesn't go well for Biden, I could easily see them contriving excuses not to have a second one. If they get what they think they needed out of it, then they'll do another one. But if it doesn't go well for him, they've got options to try to back out of it. But I don't think they're going to back out of this one. I really think they need to. They feel like they have to get one contest out there. They have to show that Joe's in the race. And right now, there's a lot of buzz that they're going to dump him, that he's terrible. Look how much he's degenerated over the last couple of weeks. He can't even talk coherently anymore. So there's fever pitch buzz that they're going to try to dump him. And if you're the Biden campaign, you have to dispel that notion by putting him out there and at least having him look semi-coherent for the whole debate.
No, it's true. I mean, he's the one that released the social media video that said, I need to name the date, pal. I'll be there anytime, any place, right? He's the guy that did this, so here we are. I guess he can't back away from it now or he'd look bad.
Yeah, and also in light of the Hunter Biden convictions, he can't really just scurry away from the debate after something like that. And I'm sure a big part of his debate is going to be some big emotional pitch about how he loves his son and he loves his family, and that's going to be aimed at shoring up the Democrat white female vote that they think they might be in danger of losing, and they're cooked if they lose that vote. So, he's going to pitch to his audience.
So we now have a story today that 8 suspects tied to ISIS have been detained in Philadelphia, New York, and Los Angeles. This shouldn't surprise us, but it's interesting that the FBI... Here's what my question is for you, John Hayward. So now all of a sudden the FBI is engaged in terror watches again, and we're rounding up illegal aliens with ISIS ties, which really is not going to lend itself well then to a discussion about border security to Biden. And by the way, I mean, deporting illegal aliens. This makes Trump's case, doesn't it, pretty easily?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is what happens when you have lunatics with open borders ideology that decide to just let everybody stroll across the border. You're going to get terrorists, you're going to get criminals, gangsters, maniacs, lunatics, and you're going to get a bunch of nice, hardworking people that just want a good job too, sure. But when you're not vetting people, when you're not doing anything to protect the border, you're just letting people stroll in. And now, the Homeland Security Secretary, they're going to start flying them in to spare them the effort of having to actually walk across the desert. They're going to start flying them in from their home countries to get the illegals in here faster and more safely. That means you're going to get terrorists. You're going to get something like this. And it only takes one gang, 8 people with ISIS affiliations. What were these guys up to? What were they planning to do if they'd had a little bit more time to work on it? You can't trust the FBI to catch them all.
John, the other story that I didn't really have a firm grasp on, and I think some of the audience actually reached out and said, well, why don't you call your buddy John? He'll explain it to you. And of course, I knew you would. Broadly, I understand that conservatism or populism is on the rise in Europe. But this EU election thing, I know that multiple countries had this sort of populist, or if you want, conservative center-right opposition uprising in the EU elections. Macron has injected himself somehow. The thing is, I don't know. I really don't understand the system, so I don't quite understand it. I know some conservatives were really alarmed that Macron was doing something underhanded here. What he's done is legal. It's constitutional per France's constitution to do what he's done, but it doesn't happen very often. So I don't know. Can you explain to me, like I'm 5, what the EU is, who these people are that vote, and what Macron has done to try to stave it off?
Well, in the European Union, right-wing extremist now means somebody who thinks his government has a duty to its own citizens. That's far right-wing extremism now. If you're an enlightened, if you're not a far-right extremist, then you want the entire third world to roll across the border and occupy your country as fast as you can get them there. And you think the notion that you, as an elite citizen of the world, as a prince of the European Union, have some duty to these grubby middle-class types that live in your country is offensive to you. You recoil in disgust at that notion. And the people in Europe are getting pretty tired of it. And people in Germany think the German government should care about Germans. And people in the UK think the British government should care about them. And in France, likewise. And they can look and point at the damage they're suffering from these insane policies that have just flooded their countries with foreign nationals and have begun deforming their politics and jeopardizing the very lives of their citizens. But they're caricatured as right-wing extremists. And the political elite in Europe, like Macron, think they have a license to do whatever it takes to stop this. This populism is this evil. It's toxic evil. Why it's 2 steps away from being the Nazis reborn. And anything they do to stop this, prevent them from gaining political power, is fair game in their eyes and in the eyes of much of the European media. So that's why, they'll do whatever it takes to make sure this populist wave of evil doesn't overtake the European Union. But this is a real movement, and I think it does have analogs in the United States, and it's a harbinger of things to come. It is kind of a conservative awakening around the world, but it's not old school conservative. It's not really what we would have called conservative under Reagan. It's just people that think their own government should care about them.
Yes, and we've seen it in Canada. We've certainly seen it here with the first election of Trump. I think we're about to see it again. We saw it with Brexit, right? So we're seeing it in these EU elections. This keeps happening. Free countries with free elections, relatively free elections, the people keep speaking up and saying we're tired of the back of the government's hand is effectively the theme wherever these governments are found.
Right. Yeah. And if you do the things that these governments are doing, like ours, like Biden did by erasing our southern border, you're removing the power of your own people to compel their political class to have a duty to them. You're erasing the whole notion of citizenship and the idea that a political elite has some duty to the citizens that it lords over. That's what these people want to destroy with what they're doing to us by erasing national identity. And it's not evil, Nazism, nationalism, racism, whatever, to just politely insist that no, people, America's for Americans, Germans for Germans, and they should have some control over their political elite, and their political elite has a duty to the people that live in those countries. That's the idea that we're trying to bring back around the world, and it is an uphill struggle.
I had to laugh this week, and I thought of you when I read it, that Biden may himself, unilaterally get involved in talking with Hamas. And the UN has advanced this ceasefire resolution, and the story said something like Hamas would maybe feel the pressure more because Russia and China abstained from the vote, meaning they allowed it to go forward, meaning the UN has basically, slapped Hamas's wrist and said, all right, you need to knock it off. And because Russia and China abstained, Hamas would really cower or something. I had to laugh at that because, again, I come back to this one central theme in my mind, and that is Hamas is Islamism, Islamo-supremacy. And Islamo-supremacists don't care about anyone or anything but Islamo-supremacy. They don't care about China, and they don't care about Russia. And by the way, not that I'm telling you anything you don't know, Russia and China have a way of dealing with Islamo-supremacists. So I don't know that they're pals or deferential to Russia and China anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, they don't have mass migration. They don't bring in gigantic populations of angry Muslims to colonize their cities. Right. And if Muslims in China or Russia decide to start opposing the government, they go away. They're eliminated with ruthless efficiency by those regimes because they're not going to let an ideology like that run wild. They intercepted correspondence from the leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, the other day. And in his private correspondence to other Hamas leaders, he said he thinks they're winning this with the help of the student protesters in the United States, with the help of the United Nations. Hamas thinks they're winning because deliberate civilian casualties are part of their strategy. Haniyeh was delighted at all the Palestinians who have died in the Gaza war. That was their strategy because it's really putting pressure on Israel and making them look bad. And in one of his letters, he said, we have the Israelis right where we want them. So there's nothing happening at the UN that makes the leader of Hamas even slightly concerned in his private correspondence. That's all you need to know about where the UN is at right now.
By the way, four teachers from Iowa were stabbed in, and I don't know if they were killed or just wounded, but in China. You don't hear a lot about that. I mean, not that we would necessarily, but the one thing you'll say about China is if you travel over there, and I know this was something that people have taken exception with, like it sounds like we're traitors when we say it, but it's just true. You go to China, it's meticulous. There's really no crime. There's not even petty crime. But, of course, again, those guys disappear if you can commit petty crime. So this is sort of a rare thing, is it not, in China? How do you read that?
Although Yes, but you also have to remember they are a communist totalitarian dictatorship,
right.
So they're not going to report on any crime that they find politically inconvenient. There could be crime in all kinds of places in China, and you're never going to hear about it because it would embarrass the regime. So that's not going to be reported on. But generally speaking, yeah, I mean, they've got a gigantic surveillance state. They have swarms of paramilitary police officers, police, soldiers, and everything ready to crack down on their population. So that does give you a certain amount of order in the streets when you manage your country that way. And it is a little unusual when you see a crime like this. They do have mass murders occasionally, terrorist attacks, mass shootings happen in China from time to time. It's relatively rare, but it does happen. Even the most powerful authoritarian state can't completely eradicate crime, especially in a country as big as China is.
Yeah, and one last thing on China is I saw the 60 Minutes was actually doing a profile on all the American business that's done in China. Of course, number 2 economy in the world. We all understand that. But I don't know, it was some apparatchik from the government, I don't know, some diplomat type who was lamenting to Leslie Stahl, you know, the thing is, American companies, they like doing business here, but China's really got to figure out whether they want to be a totalitarian state and kick down the doors of these businesses and and threaten them and all of this business, or let them operate freely. They've got a choice to make. And I had to kind of laugh. I mean, as though we're sitting around waiting for China to come to its senses. I get it. American business says we want access to that economy, so we're going to hang around and do business. But at any time, they've got to prepare for China to kick down their door and throw them out.
I think American businesses have largely made their peace with that. That's why that's such a foolish statement. That's the delusion back in the 90s that led to bringing China into the World Trade Organization, and everybody thought it'll be just like the Soviet Union. We're going to get them in love with our goods and our lifestyle and our blue jeans, and then their whole authoritarian system will crumble. No, it didn't. They managed to process all of that and control their version of capitalism. They do have some sort of capitalist activity in China, and they do welcome foreign businesses, but always under the iron thumb of the totalitarian Communist Party. And yeah, they'll kick your door in a hot second if they think they need to. They'll steal your intellectual property. They'll subject you to unfair laws that privilege Chinese competitors. But look at how many Western businesses are okay with that. They have no trouble throwing a forum over there, and Tim Cook from Apple and Elon Musk and everybody else shows up and kisses their rings. They're willing to accept a certain amount of abuse in exchange for the money that they're making by doing business with China. And unless that changes, I don't think the Chinese government thinks it has a big problem.
Finally, on Russia. There's a story today that Russia is sending a few of its naval vessels to do some exercises or some such thing in the Caribbean around Cuba. Now, is that provocative or not? CBS News says, don't worry, this is basically just a little boat show. No big deal. I mean, is it no big deal? I always was kind of under the impression if Russia was playing around in waters not far off our shores, we should take notice.
I'd say it's a flex. It's a mild provocation, but it's more than that. It's a display of strength, once again capitalizing on Joe Biden's weakness, the idea that he's a laughing stock on the world stage. They want to make sure everybody knows they're not scared of the senile old man, so they're going to hold these drills and everything, and they're going to tell those people in South America, Latin America, we're here. Russia, China, we're here. We're in this hemisphere now. We have a presence. We have military power. We have economic power. They're trying to recruit Venezuela into BRICS, which is the China and Russia-dominated economic collective. So they're trying to extend their influence all across the hemisphere, and putting on a little military performance is part of doing that, of thumbing their nose at the big Satan in the U.S. and saying, look, we're in this hemisphere to stay. We're here to play.
Man, so many big, important things. Like Hunter Biden's gun conviction, John, is not... Doesn't it feel like the silliest thing, really? I mean, it's as obvious as nose on their face and the coke up his nose that he's a felon. We all get that, but that's the least of our concerns. I mean, literally as a news matter, but also in terms of the storyline of the Biden family, it's not even close. And that's what everybody's talking about this morning.
It's the least of the investigations into the Biden family. It's the least of the things they should be investigated for. And we're going to be told to be satisfied with this. We're going to say, okay, fine, you got your pound of Hunter's flesh. Now go away, leave them alone, leave the Bidens alone. And they've let the statute of limitations expire on a lot of the more serious charges against the Bidens just so they can do this gun control thing. It's good to see that there is actually a law that applies to Hunter Biden. I was starting to worry that there weren't any. I think the law of gravity applies to him, but that's about the only one. And now it looks like he actually is going to be in trouble. He won't do any jail time, though. I mean, he'll be pardoned by Biden after the election, so he's never going to see the inside of a jail. But it is a small victory to show that maybe the privileges of the elite are not invincible. This is a tiny crack, and I think it needs to be widened into a much bigger crack.
John Hayward, National Security Deputy Editor at Breitbart. You're still on the outs with X?
I did try to recreate my account. I'm going to try to get it back off the ground again. So I'm back out there, and I made a new account for myself as the word Dr_0, and the O is a number 0.
So it's Dr.
0 with a 0.
Dr_0.
Yep, with a 0 at the end.
All right, let's get that follow
count. I can't get my nice short name back. It was such a good name. It was so easy to read.
It really was. Well, look, you'll build that thing back up in no time because everything you post on X and everything you write at Breitbart is worth the read and share. John Hayward, thank you, my friend.
Thanks for having me again.
Hey, Mike Lindell and MyPillow, you know the name. 20 years they've been singing the jingle on Fox News and on the radio. And it's no secret that Mike and the company have come under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of attack. Big box stores have tossed MyPillow from their stores. Even the online retailers now won't sell MyPillow products. And who does that hurt, really? I mean, yeah, I understand they don't like Mike's position on the election or whatever, but Mike employs hundreds of Americans, hundreds of Minnesotans who make great products. If you know the MyPillow products, I sleep on them every night. So does my dog, Dean. They're great products. And he wants to sell them to you at unbelievable prices, by the way, but they're backed with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. And most importantly, again, they're made here in the United States. So it's not something he's asking me to say. It's just something I'd like to remind you of, that a guy who has an opinion, who happens to own a very successful American company and employs a lot of Americans who make great American products that a lot of you have bought and owned or are looking to buy and own. I just want you to know that while he takes it on the chin a lot out there for having the positions he has, he wants to keep his employees busy. He wants to keep the company moving along, and so he's passing on huge, huge savings to you in what he's calling the $25 extravaganza. Getting the word out, I want to invite you to check out this $25 extravaganza today. 2 multi-pack MyPillows, just $25. MyPillow sandals, just $25. I'm looking at the list of these deals right now. 6-pack towel set, just $25. 6-pack of towels, $25. And the MyPillows with the new Giza fabric, just $25. And here's the thing, if you order any or all of this stuff, if you exceed $75 with your order, he ships it to you for free. So free shipping on anything $75 or over. And look, with all those deals and so many more at just $25 a piece, I think you'll be very, very pleased with not just the quality, but the price point and the free shipping. It's MyPillow.com. I hope you'll use the promo code ChrisPodcast. MyPillow.com, ChrisPodcast, to take advantage of all these savings. Get that free shipping over $75. Or call 800-932-5056. Great operators, American-based operators. You can call and say, hey, I'm with you. And hang in there. 800-932-5056. Don't forget the promo code ChrisPodcast. It lets them know you listen, which I appreciate, but more importantly, get you that deal. MyPillow.com or 800-932-5056. Promo code ChrisPodcast. Gen Z plumbers and construction workers are making blue-collar cool. Interesting. Most of the time, when a person called Lexus that's profiled in this Wall Street Journal story is stripping cables in a ditch or troubleshooting a sparking outlet the size of her fan base, doesn't mean too much to her, but then she'll be strolling through the airport in Las Vegas and a stranger will call her name. Some 2.2 million people on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook watch Lexus do her work as an electrician in Cornwall, New York. Maybe you aren't one of them. Did you see her recently atop a bucket truck adding utility outlets to power poles or fixing an electric panel in a water-damaged basement? She says you feel just like a normal person until you actually get confronted by people and you're like, oh my goodness, this is real. People know who I am. 27-year-old daughter and granddaughter of electricians. And since she began posting videos from her job in 2022, she's gotten thousands of messages from viewers saying she sparked their interest in trade work. I see what they did there. Lexus' path is one that more young Americans are considering. Skepticism about the cost and value of 4-year degrees is growing. Thank you, Jesus. I added that. That's not from the Wall Street Journal. Skepticism about the cost and value of 4-year degrees is growing, and enrollment in vocational programs has risen as young people pursue well-paying jobs that don't require desks or so much debt and come with the potential to be your own boss. I can't say it enough. Maybe everyone in this audience knows it already, but I'm telling you, it is stunning that young people not even 20 years of age or in their early 20s can be paid right out of high school to go into trade, paid while they're studying that trade, earning 6 figures by their middle 20s without even batting an eye. I mean, do you know that there are kids in their early 20s out there pulling down 6 figures right now, Fast Eddie, and that's just the beginning of their careers in trades?
It's incredible, man. Every time something happens with the toilet or this, I'm like, oh, here we go.
The number of students enrolled in vocational-focused community colleges rose 16% last year to the highest level since they began tracking such data in 2018. This is such an important development, and I hope it continues.
The Chris DeGaul Show Podcast.